Assalamu alaikum. I'm here with another board game review of Arkwright, the card game, and today I'll be telling you that why you should play this smaller version of a bigger game which was just called Arkwright. Arkwright was set up as an economic game set in the England during the industrial age, when the industrial age was starting and the concept of machine-based factories was being introduced. And Arkwright was one of those pioneers who set up these such factories, and you will be now in his shoes, trying to set up your own factories in four of the products if you want, to actually try to have the maximum capture of the market in the Great Britain. Now, this is a smaller version of the game, and even though this is called Arkwright the card game, and lot of components are based on the card as compared to the bigger game, but let me be honest that it's still going to be, it's not a small game, it's still a huge game. It's going to require a lot of table space. So for example, whatever you see in front of me, that's going to be just for one player, except some common things. So you will need a lot of space to play this game, but is it really worth it? And does it really improve upon the board game version? So for that, let me explain how the game actually works. And then even if you don't know the board game, about the actual board game, I will be trying to cover everything that comes in the card game. And then in the end, we will do a small comparison and my final thoughts. So let's get on with it. Do understand that this is a very heavy economic game, so we cannot be going through all the rules of the game, but I will be telling you one gist of the game, that how it plays out, and I will be showing just the setup for one of the players. So for example, this area is going to be the setup required for one of the players. So it is a table hog, whereas this is the common market board and some common market cards that are going to be available for all the players. So whatever is applicable for one player, of course similar will be applicable for other players, but just to keep the understanding or this explanation short, I'm showing you one player setup only. What you will be doing on the game, there is a handy aid available in this game which is actually double-sided, and you will be doing all these steps to play the game. But essentially, each player is going to start with two of these factories. There are four types of factories. There is bread, coats, cutlery and lamps, and you will be starting with those. And in each of the rounds, only one of these factories is going to do any production. So this tracker represents the round, and as the rounds move on, one generation will pass. You will go through 3 generations. So each factory is going to produce 3 times. Each generation has 4 rounds, and that's in a total of 12 rounds the game will finish. So what's going to happen in each of these rounds? You're going to be developing new factories, or you're going to be improving your existing factories. So for example, I start with 2 factories. For example, I have a bread factory and a cutlery factory. I haven't set it up full because also its setup is very daunting. Each player is going to get a handful of cards that he starts with, but you cannot just place all of these cards, and that's why I wanted to show that how they have made it slightly simple. It's still going to be daunting, but slightly simple is that there is an iconography available on the top which actually tells where does it go in relation to your main factory tile, which is going to be here. Always half of your card is going to be hidden. So for example, this is the side office that's going to be attached to your main factory. So if you flip it, there are 2 sides available. You can slide in one of these sides and then slide it in, and that's your setup of your factory. And this is how your basic factory is going to look like. The same symbology is available on top of each of these cards, which is really a handy thing. Still, you're going to face problems, but still always have a look at these top symbols so that you can understand where each of these cards can be played out. But this is the basic setup you can start with. Now, what can you do on your turn? Again, the game aid is going to tell you that you can set up a new factory. So we have still 2 more factories to go, and we can build those. We can hire new worker on these factories. When we hire new workers, there are additional cards, and there are cards specific available for each of these 4 type of factories. So for example, if I wanted to increase my bread factory workers, I will be sliding this underneath. The lamp post will match the lamp post, and now I have 1 2 3 4 5 6 workers in my bread factory. What is it doing is actually it's increasing my bread production. So previously I was producing 5 breads, but having 2 more workers, I'm producing 6 breads. So the more production increases. Or one of the things is I can change one of my workers to replace it with a machine. So how the machines work is, so for example, in any future round, if I was actually working with the machine, it does say rotate the card. So within the same generation, these cards can rotate. And how it will improve is that now there are 2 machines available. What's the difference? Even though the production is still the same, but what's the machine advantage is going to be is that we, at the end of the round, I still have to pay the wages. Irrespective of how many breads I sold, I have to pay the wages of this worker. And at the bottom of this board, the common board, there are going to be the common minimum wage that you have to pay to your labor workers, which is applicable to everyone. So the more the economy prospers, more factories there are, more jobs are available, people are going to demand more money for doing the same job. So the people wages increase, whereas the machine cost is going to remain static. So ideally you do want to replace humans with machines later on, so that it is more automated and you're just doing minimum cost maintenance of your machines with minimal supervision of the workers. Pure capitalistic dream. So that's one more thing that you can do. Then another thing that you can do is increase the quality or do marketing for your goods. This is where some additional cards are going to come in, which are represented by these quality check marks. So if you increase the quality of your goods, it increases either your demand or it increases the cost of your goods, so you can sell a better quality product for more price. So if, again, taking the same example, in a future round I was increasing the quality, because right now I cannot do all of these in one turn. I have to pick one and that's it. But one of the things I can do is increase the quality. So previously my cost was going to be determined by this +4, but now I have +2. My quality of the bread is better than my competitor, so I can sell it for more. That's what quality does. Or by increasing the quality, I can actually increase the demand of that product as well. That's the bottom side of these cards. So by increasing, so more people are demanding my product. I'm selling it at the same rate, but due to the higher quality, the demand of my products go up. So if it is a higher quality product but lower cost, of course its demand is going to high. That demand is shown on these tracks. So when you have decided plus to actually set your price and everything, each factory is going to have these tiny counters as well. And when you are going to be done with the first round, that's nearly the finish of the first round, you are going to be deciding what's your final cost going to be. So for example, to sell, right now this tells me if the counter is here, so my basic factory value can change as well. So my cost is going to be 4 plus 4, 8. So my each bread is going to sell for 8, but the demand for my bread is going to be only 2, and I'm going to place one of my cubes in the 2 section. So from 0 it went to 2. I will be placing, since I have a factory for cutlery and one factory for bread, that's where my 2 cubes go. So as soon as I cross these demand markers, this demand or the power capability of the local people to buy product changes as well. So if it goes up, the less people become capable of buying the product as well. So still, how much it is saying, that 2 minus 0, this is how much. So I can still sell 2 products in the market. How many am I producing? I'm producing 6 breads, but I'm able to sell only 2 in the local market because that's the only capacity in the market to actually buy my goods. Whereas if this difference was very high, if this was 7 minus 0, then the market is able to accept 7 of my products. My demand of my product was 7. So right now my demand is not that much. My market demand is only 2. So not many people need my product. So maybe investing in too much production is going to just increase my cost, whereas people are not interested in buying my product. So that's the kind of balance that you are trying to achieve before you go for selling. And at selling time, you can rotate these cards, the only this right side, not the left side. You cannot fire people at this time, you cannot change machines, but you can change the quality at this time. So if I know I can need to do something, maybe I can swap this, reduce the quality of my, reduce the cost of my product and increase the demand. So my demand now becomes 5, but by crossing 2 more, it increases 2 more. Still the delta is going to be 5 minus 0, so I can still sell 5 products. So out of 6, I was able to sell 5, and that's the kind of balance I'll be doing by selling my products. Once everyone has done that, there will be a selling round. So everyone is going to sell and get the money. So how you calculate the money? Again, your price has already been determined. Accordingly, this is going to show that how much money you're going to get. You will be setting that money minus, then you will be paying the wages for the people. So how many people were in that factory operating those machines, plus the machine maintenance cost, you will be subtracting that from your. So maybe I started with 50 and ended up with 56. So my net positive earning was 56. One more thing that's going to also happen is that how many products was I able to sell. That's going to change my stock market value. So if I was able to sell 2 or more products, then my stock prices are going to increase. And that's what's represented coming to this personal boards. The top 2 markers are going to determine our victory points, and that's the focus of the game, that these stock market, my stock market prices are going to increase. People are trusting more this company because it's reliable, it's producing products, and people are interested in it. In the end, your score is going to be based on how many of the stocks in your own company do you own. You will not be earning based on the money you have, but based on how many stocks of your own company you have, multiply by what's the stock price of your shares at that time. So the top is how many stocks you own currently. Every player starts with 10 stocks in their own, as well as the stock price starts with 10 as well. So as this marker moves on, the stock price increases. So tomorrow, if you do decide to, and that's also one of the action, tomorrow if you do decide to buy one of the stocks, you will be buying at this current price. So ideally you want to buy stocks early as possible in the game, but at the same time you need to have liquid cash available to pay the wages. So that's always a balance that you're going to actually face in this game, that when do I buy stocks, or when do I just pay the wages, produce goods, but that is going to increase the cost of my own share, and tomorrow when I have to pay, it is going to cost me more. One of the upgrades that you can do on your player board is the stockhouse upgrade, which is going to, as an action, instead of upgrading your factory or anything, you can actually have better stock market ratio upgrades, which is going to reduce the cost of your first by changing the cube to this location. Now your first stock that you always buy in any round is going to cost you half of whatever is the current price, or you can upgrade it more, so you can buy two stocks at half the price. So in the end, players might be reaching, okay, I have 22 stocks, multiply by, let's say, 20 is the cost price, so 200 and 440 will be my total earnings, and that will determine my final victory points. Each player is going to check what's the earning points for them, and that's how they determine what's the score. What's the other things? Again, other than these things, one of the things they will be also doing, that's an additional action that each player is going to get, is upgrade, do some a permanent upgrade to your factory or to your stock market or to your passive abilities. So initially, for example, for quality, you are limited to low level cards. So your maximum, for example, quality is limited by how many quality cards can you play at a time. But if you improve this action, the number of quality cards that you can play, which is represented by a thumbs up symbol, can be increased. So more and more better thumbs up cards can be used. So for example, the difference between a 2 thumbs up card which gives +2 demand to a 4 thumbs up card is that it gives +4 demand. Same goes for cost. Same goes for marketing as well. The marketing can do the same thing as well. It gives you an immediate boost as compared to quality. Quality and marketing actually do similar kind of thing. They improve the demand of your goods, but quality is a permanent thing. Once you add it, then you can forget about your factory is good to go. But the other thing that's going to happen is with the marketing is that for marketing actually lowers down each round. So if you are unable to if you use marketing, people forget your ads, people forget about the announcement that you have made. So slowly the marketing value decreases and slowly people will forget, and that's how the game will go. Of course, there are many other things. So for example, we talked about that I produced 6 goods and only 5 of them were sold. What happens to the last one? There are cards here where you can actually store that good. These cards are used to actually show that you have stored this good for a future round. So maybe in a future round you don't need to produce that much, you can produce less and use one of your pre-stored goods to sell them. Another option can be that you can send it to offshore location and sell them to outside markets outside of Britain, and then earn from there. You will get better profits, but the stockholders are not very welcoming this risky move of sending goods on ships. Pirates, ships can sink, so they lose trust and you will get less stock prices. You can take loans, then you can take additional engineers, specialists. You can hire these specialists which are available in common market to improve your passive abilities as well. So for example, the engineers, they let you maintain factories, maintain your machines without spending any cost. So based on number of machines that are represented on these cards, they improve that ability. The worker overtime cards, they let you use the workforce by paying less cost to them. So they are working more at a less cost. So these are the kind of improvements that you can do. Sometimes there will be cards that let you, if 2 players are actually higher on the track, then who is the market leader? So if you have this card, then that card determines that you become the market leader even if 2 players are on the same track. So that increases your stock value more than the other, because being a market leader in something, for example, if Apple is a market leader in smartphones, then their stock prices increases slightly above, irrespective of how many sales they do. That's going to happen there. So there are all these smaller mechanisms as well that are layered into this game. You can try to go for all 4 factories, or whether you go for just 2 factories. There are too many, and just concentrate on developing a very good engine for these 2 factories. So these are the kind of decisions that you are going to face. The one of the things that you are also going to face is this mechanism that as this disc goes up and down, the demand of the people is going to change, and that is becomes problematic the more players there are, because if they are trying to sell the same good, then the demand is changing as well. So how is demand changing? Because it's the same number of people trying to buy the goods. So if someone else comes in and tries to actually enter into the bread market, more competition is available. Now the people are divided whether they buy your good or they buy your competitor's good. So this market demand moves up, which means your competitor is going to get some partial percentage of people they will get, as well as you are going to get some partial number of people who are going to buy from you. So that's always going to be not very clear to you at the very beginning, or maybe those people who are AP prone, analysis paralysis prone, they are going to work out all the possibilities to determine how much high demand they need to take, because the other player is going to play their demand card as well, how much demand they have currently, how much cushion they have, what will they try to do to at least get two goods out, and how much demand you should increase so that all their goods, all your goods are going to sell out. So the game can lead to analysis paralysis and long turns by such players who are thinking about each and every turn, and that's the backdrop of this game, because all the information is openly available on the market board that what's going to happen by the time the turn reaches the end game. You don't really know what they are going to do, but you can calculate all the probabilities that can happen. Now in Arkwright, the card game, a few things about the components of the game. As compared to Arkwright, the board game, the components are super lovely. Let me say it outright. The other game, the full board game, looked ugly. It's still very beige, this card game, but the other one was super ugly, and I wouldn't want to play that anytime. But this one has beautiful artwork, especially the artwork on the specialist cards, the artwork of the characters, that's really beautiful. This long board is really the ugliest thing in this one. The other thing, component wise, not art wise, the component wise, what I don't like are these tiny tokens. You will not be able to even see them, which actually move on these boards. Plus there are these tiny ship tokens, how many ships you have sent, how many loans you have taken. There are very teeny tiny cardboard tokens. If they wanted teeny tiny tokens, maybe better would have been wood components, but there are many tiny components, and I would have preferred that they either use punch boards, dual layer boards, so that they stick in something and don't get lost. Just like they have dual layer play boards, which are very high quality, but for some other components they are very loose and you will be losing those components. So that's a very bad thing that's going to happen with these components. So other than component wise, let's now come to the gameplay. As I have mentioned, that one of the things that I don't like about this game is this open market information, which you do need to actually calculate what you're going to do, but that analysis paralysis part actually slows down the game, especially if you have even a single player who tries to math out every possibility. One of the ways they could have fixed this was that if they would have introduced something like Smartphone Inc., where you have player shields, and players could have done all of this simultaneously, even where they could have gone for the third stage or the selling stage behind player shields, where they rotated their cards, set their prices, and then revealed what changes have happened and accordingly what the market price is and the demand rate is now. So somehow that could have managed, it would have reduced the overall time of the game, as well as nobody would be doing to math out, especially the first player who doesn't know what the last player is going to do. The first player comes at a disadvantage actually in this game at any round. So if you are the first player and you were the one who set up the factory and the last player is not even in that factory, so it creates that kind of imbalance in my opinion, for the first player. So if they had just provided player shields and hidden information that the selling phase or the final market and demand set price stage was happening behind a shield and then being revealed, and then whatever happens, I think it would have worked better, because you don't know what's going to happen in the market. uh, you have some idea what someone has done for marketing, you have some idea what someone has done for their quality, but how the market is going to react, you don't know. Anyway, so that's one issue that I had with the game. Now this is going to be a very heavy thinking game. I try to cover majority of the rules, but again there are many small nuances, small things, a lot of iconography, a lot of things that you have to understand. Well, do I get to rotate this card now or not? When we go to the next generation, there are backsides of these cards. All of these cards can be flipped over for their more powerful side, because a generation has passed and now technology has improved. So when do I get to flip them? Okay, so when I take the factory upgrade action or factory installation action, now it becomes a factory upgradation action. So things like that. It's going to take you time to go through that rule book. It's not going to be an easy teach to go through this game. But is it going to be worth it? I think yes. If as long as you love economic games, then yes, this is a worthy successor to Arkwright the board game. You don't need to get Arkwright the board game anytime if you have this. This is a much superior game in my opinion. It certainly looks better, it certainly plays better, has nearly all the functionality of that main game while improving upon whatever it had. Um, Comparing it to games like City on Big Shoulders, I haven't played that one, but based upon my understanding, it would be slightly below it. So if you already have those kind of heavy economic games, maybe if you wanted to try something different, then sure, this will be good enough for it. If you wanted to something with a little bit more color, then yes, this is going to be a better product for it. If you wanted a little something quicker, then yes, this is going to be for it. But if you wanted something to actually replace games, heavy economic games like City on Big Shoulders, then this is not going to be the game. So that's my opinion of Arkwright the card game. Hopefully this gives you an idea of whether this game is right for you or not. Hopefully this was helpful for you. You have seen the review, make up your own mind whether this game is right for you or not. That's it for me. Happy gaming.